Hey everybody, it's Rebecca. I am a certified health and wellness coach, and I specialize in working with clients with inflammatory bowel disease. So I personally have ulcerative colitis and was diagnosed with that actually about a year ago. And that's kind of what started me on my journey with health coaching and also just learning as much as I can about the disease and how best to manage it with both medical management and lifestyle changes that I've been incorporating throughout the past year. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how I got diagnosed and then just go through 5 key things that I've learned in the last year and that I think would have been super helpful to know going into this diagnosis rather than, figuring it out kind of as I go. But yeah, so 5 main things that I wish I knew when I got diagnosed last year. So actually leading up to my diagnosis, I ended up going into the ER about last March, and I had been having just lots of GI issues, and I had been having symptoms off and on for about a couple years prior to that. Initially, my first symptom was just some diarrhea, and it was basically just limiting me when I was trying to work out or do any strenuous activity. And I was scheduled to do a half marathon and knew that I was not going to be able to do that because of my GI issues. And so I had gone into the doctor, and she basically said, since the diarrhea was my only symptom, that she recommended trying probiotics and seeing if that would help. And then she said if that doesn't work, probably I would have to do a bunch of testing and lab work and see a GI doctor and have a colonoscopy to really figure out what else was going on. And as an otherwise very healthy, active 26-year-old, the last thing that I wanted to do was have a colonoscopy, because obviously that's for really old people, right? I didn't know anybody that was my age that had a colonoscopy. So I tried the probiotics, and they actually worked great for about 6 months. So I was able to do my half marathon, didn't have any issues, stopped taking my probiotics because, of course, my body had healed itself like it always does, and I was fine. And then I started having issues again, probably about 6 months after the first time. And it wasn't anything major, but just kind of limiting me when I would work out or do something strenuous. And then I started having more issues just when I would go for walks with my husband or with walking the dog. And so my husband was telling me, like, you really need to get this checked out. And I knew that, I had something wrong, but it always ended up getting better after several weeks, and then I'd be fine for a couple months, and then I'd have issues again, and then I'd be fine for a couple months. It was actually as a new mom that once I had another flare-up, it became harder and harder to ignore my symptoms. My husband was really good about it, but he was saying, Becca, this is really limiting you. You really need to go get it checked out. And I, again, at that point was kind of like, I know it's just not convenient because I know I'm going to have to do a bunch of testing. I'm going to have to do a colonoscopy. And I am a physical therapist, so obviously by no means a GI specialist, but I have taken some GI classes and kind of understand how things work, and also just have a decent medical background. I work in a hospital. So I had looked at my symptoms online was pretty sure I had ulcerative colitis. So once I found out what I had, or what I thought I had, I wasn't quite as worried about it. And just kind of thought, eventually I'll go get it taken care of, but now's not a good time for me. Not necessarily what I recommend people do, but that's what I was doing. And so in March a year ago, I had a really bad flare-up that lasted a lot longer than any of my other flare-ups. Normally my flares were just kind of bothered me in the mornings, and then I was fine at work, but I was starting to have issues working. It was really hard to do basically any family stuff outside of the house. I was up like 5, 6, 7 times overnight, going to the bathroom every night. And then I started to think, maybe I don't have ulcerative colitis. Maybe I have colon cancer, and that's, really bad. So tried to get into the doctor, couldn't get in for like a week. So ended up going to the ER. And at that point, they did a CT scan, and basically the CT scan just showed that I had inflammation in my colon, which was what I really wanted to hear. I was just starting to get myself worked up that I had colon cancer, and so I was glad to hear it was just inflammation. Ended up getting referred to a GI doctor. Thankfully, I got into the office a little bit faster because I had a referral from the ER, and it basically went from there, kind of how I expected it to go. Did a bunch of like food sensitivity testing, lab work, and ended up doing a colonoscopy, which then confirmed, yes, I have ulcerative colitis. And so that's kind of the whole story on like how I got diagnosed. And initially my goal with finding a diet or just like managing my condition nutritionally was I didn't want to take medication. And so I wanted to do, some sort of managing it with nutrition and get off the medication. And just kind of what I've realized, so this is my, key point number 1, medical management is really important. And especially with ulcerative colitis, it is not good to be in a chronic state of inflammation, and it does increase your risk for colon cancer. And so just managing the inflammation is, at least for me personally, way more important than not taking medication. And the medication that I'm on has very few side effects. I tolerate it really well. So it was more just the idea of having to take lots of pills that I didn't like, rather than me not tolerating the medication that I was on. So it's super important to keep following up with your medical team. If you need to, work with a nutritionist, hopefully someone that specializes in digestive disorders. And then, just the gastroenterologist and that whole team, making sure that you're working with them to help manage your condition. The second thing for me, when I first got diagnosed, nobody knew about it except for my husband, and which was fine. It wasn't, as long as I wasn't in a really bad flare, it wasn't a huge limitation for me. I was still managing okay at work, but when I was having some digestive issues, it was just kind of like awkward because I was always running to the bathroom, and when I was visiting extended family or something like that, like they kind of noticed. And so just coming out and like telling people, hey, I have this, and definitely not making a big deal of it, but just, this is something that I'm dealing with, makes it a lot less awkward when you are having issues, because everybody knows like, oh, she has ulcerative colitis, rather than having them wonder, is something wrong? You're like, you've been to the bathroom 5 times. So just coming out and telling, my closer family, and then like some of my friends know about it too. And also that helps because they know that I am trying to eat differently now too. And so a lot of them have been super great about asking me, what can I bring, if we're doing potlucks or something, what can I bring that you can eat? Um, and, I'm a big girl. I will pick and choose what I'm going to eat at a potluck, regardless of what's there. But all my family and friends have been super supportive and just trying to help out and, bring stuff that I feel good about eating too, which is super helpful. So I would say just letting, close friends and family kind of know what's going on makes it kind of decreases uncomfortable situations down the road if you are having issues when you're with them. So the third thing, especially being a young mom, when you're having a flare, it really sucks and can really limit like how you're able to take care of your kids and what you're able to do with them. So just really being, I would say, do the best you can. There's a lot of mom guilt out there as far as not, being able to take care of your kids the way you feel like you should be or the way you perceive everybody else is doing it. And just realizing it is what it is. Do what you can, but you have to take care of yourself. And so I just had my second daughter a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that I've really been trying to prioritize is I really try to take a nap when my toddler is napping, because I'm up a lot at night with my newborn, and if I don't take a nap, even if I feel fine during the day and don't really feel tired, I know that eventually if my body gets run down, I'm going to really struggle with my health, and that's going to escalate and make it harder to take care of my kids. So, do what you can, but really prioritize your health. And if that means maybe not cleaning up the kitchen or not picking up the toys afterwards or whatever, that's okay. My husband often comes home to dishes all over the kitchen and is probably like, what have you been doing all day? Like, you've been home all day and nothing's picked up. But he's super supportive, which is kind of my fourth thing, is really get support where you can. So my husband is really good about taking care of the kids when I am having issues. He's always kind of stepped up, but especially when I'm struggling, he's just super helpful. And get a babysitter if you need to. My mom is super great about coming down and helping watch the kids if I ask her. So just things like that. Really reach out for help if you need it. Don't try to go it alone. The last thing is just knowing, I guess, that UC is a lifelong condition. And so figure out how to make sustainable, healthy choices that you can maintain for the rest of your life, because it's going to be around forever, and you really need to take care of yourself, which is why for me, the health coaching aspect is so important, because a lot of people kind of, even if you have an idea of what changes you want to make, it's really hard to make changes and then stick with them forever, especially if you have a family and you're doing social things and all of that. So that's where health coaching can be so powerful and so helpful, just to really find ways to incorporate lasting and sustainable lifestyle changes so that you can feel great for the rest of your life and not fall back into old patterns, especially from a nutritional standpoint, but just in general with stress management and just lifestyle choices as well. So I actually am offering free consultation calls for anyone that's interested in learning more about how to make sustainable lifestyle choices and really incorporate that into a long-term plan. So I will post a link to my consultation call calendar in the comments. And also keep an eye out for next week's video.